Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom, I'm David Mensa, Israeli government spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the office of the Prime Minister on today, Wednesday, the 20th of November, day 411 of the October 7th war. Just a couple of points from me, and then we'll get straight to your questions. On the tragic fallen amongst Israel's armed forces, it is with regret that I share with you that since the start of this war, Israel's fallen soldiers have reached the grim number of 800. Sergeant First Class in the Reserves Omer Moshe Galdor was 30 years old and from Jerusalem. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Sergeant First Class in the Reserves Ro'i Sasson was 21 years old and from Mevaseret Zion. He fell in battle in northern Gaza. These are heartbreaking losses in defense of our country, our young soldiers who've made the ultimate sacrifice and laid down their lives so that we can be free in our own homeland. The achievements of the military campaign are many, but the war has exacted a very heavy price. Our hearts are with the bereaved families. May their memories be a blessing forever. Next, on our battle to defeat the terrorists of Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, the Prime Minister said yesterday that our heroic commanders, soldiers are doing amazing work in the service of this country. He lauded the excellent results towards the key objective of Hamas not ruling Gaza, the elimination of Hamas's military capabilities and their governing abilities. But Israel is not done yet. At the end of this war, the Prime Minister made clear that Hamas will not be in Gaza. On our hostages, 101 of them, amongst them 13 women, 2 children, the Bibas children, we will not rest, said the Prime Minister, until they are all home, the living and the deceased alike. The Prime Minister made clear to those holding our hostages. He said that there will be a price to pay to those who harm our hostages. Israel will pursue you and we will find you. But if you want out, the Prime Minister said that bring us a hostage and you and your family will get a safe way out. Israel will give $5 million for every hostage. That is a pledge from the Prime Minister of this country. Make the choice. Next, an update from Kogat in Israel's humanitarian work in Gaza. In the last 24 hours, 98 trucks were looted by armed Hamas terrorists and criminals in Gaza. So when UNRWA isn't actually handing over the humanitarian supplies to Hamas, the terrorists themselves take it by force on a daily basis. We have made this point consistently every day. As Michal Mayan, one of Israel's representatives to the United Nations, says, when you listen to United Nations spokesman to the UN Secretary General, he answers questions regarding the stealing of humanitarian aid in Gaza. Just like the 3 wise monkeys, he says, and I quote, when armed people try to take control of a vehicle and goods, we're not asking questions. So for the UN, it's see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. By refusing to name Hamas for what it is, a murderous, genocidal terrorist organization that steals humanitarian supplies from its own people, the UN is simply prolonging the suffering of innocent Palestinians. To counter this, yesterday, Israel got 132 humanitarian aid trucks in through the Kerem Shalom and Erez crossings. 50 of these trucks entered northern Gaza. 13 trucks were collected from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom by the international organizations, but that still leaves 850 trucks worth of aid simply waiting for collection, a stain on the United Nations. And the usual 6 tankers of cooking gas went in, and the rotation of humanitarian personnel completed, and the humanitarian aid to residents of Gaza ahead of the upcoming winter season, and the transfer of heaters, winter clothing, shelter equipment for Gazans Over the last 3 months, 15,000 tons of shelter equipment entering Gaza, including tents, bedding, and mattresses, and the entry of vaccines for winter illnesses, together with their testing and sampling systems to map potential outbreaks for a swift response, and the introduction of garbage containers and sewage suction truck to help ease with waste management, and 14 field hospitals established in Gaza since the start of this war, and 2,800 trucks carrying 28,000 tons of medical equipment and hygiene products for Gazan civilians, and 1,000 blood units transferred to the Al-Sahaba hospital to support operations and essential supplies. Israel has made clear, if the international community send it, Israel will get it in to continue to provide the humanitarian aid to the civilians of Gaza. So that's the end of our briefing here today. I will now take your questions. Please put them in the chat together with your news outlet, and we'll deal with each one individually. First question I can see here is from AFP, Agence France Presse, from Razieh Akok, and the question is, US envoy Amos Hochstein is expected to be in Israel this evening. Who will he meet during this visit? And could you explain what the Israeli government hopes Mr. Hochstein will bring from his meetings in Lebanon that would assuage Israel's concerns and lead to a ceasefire deal? Thank you for that question, Razieh. Let me share with you some of the figures from our battle with Hezbollah. We've had 77 people killed by Hezbollah rocket fire, drone fire, UAVs, and missiles as well. 77 of our people killed. We've had 757 people injured by this incessant rocket fire. We've had 16,500 of these rockets, UAVs, and missiles fired at our country. We've had more than 46,000 of our people still evicted from their homes in sovereign Israeli territory. And we've had 230 million square meters of our land in our north burnt by this fire from Hezbollah. Just as a reminder, this fire began on the day after the October 7th massacre. On October the 8th, when Hezbollah decided to follow the greatest day of Jew killing since the Holocaust, decided to fire rockets upon us and has not stopped one day since that time. Now, let me remind you that there is no territorial dispute between Israel and Lebanon. The Lebanese border between Israel and Lebanon is on the blue line, precisely where the United Nations asked for that border to be. Now, our requirements are extremely simple. They are listed in UN Resolution 1701. Now, the secret to that resolution is enforcement. As our Prime Minister has said, enforcement, enforcement, enforcement. That is the key point which we're after. We want to get our people home. We want to push Hezbollah behind the Litani River. It should be the Lebanese army, not an army which is infiltrated by Hezbollah, but an army, the sovereign army, without Hezbollah interference, who are policing their own land, and that will allow this country to come to a situation where the hostilities on our northern border will end, not for 1 week, not for 2 weeks, but for the future. We're not fighting this war, this longest war in Israel's history, so that we can return to this battle with Hezbollah any day soon in the near future. The tunnel network, the complex system of tunnels that we have discovered, that the IDF has discovered in southern Lebanon, and the complex array of weaponry and missiles and rockets and grenades and rocket launchers and complex missile systems that we have discovered, and the fact that we know that Hezbollah planned the Conquer the Galilee strategy, which would have made the October 7th massacre pale into comparison with the brutality which Hezbollah sought to meet upon this country. We know this is what Hezbollah would want to do with us. We know that Hezbollah, backed by Iran, wished to destroy its country. UN Resolution 1701 says very, very clearly, Hezbollah behind the Litani River, no longer having a force to threaten this country. Also, the weapons supplies, the missile supplies, the tens of thousands of rockets, UAVs, drones and missiles which have flooded the country from Iran via Syria, that can no longer continue. Those are what Israel is looking for peace to be returned to our northern border. So, on these negotiations for a ceasefire, the United States and other countries are leading these negotiations to return to quiet, but our military campaign will continue until the immediate threat from Lebanon is removed and our residents in our north can safely return to their homes. Okay, next question here is from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. How would you estimate the chances of a ceasefire with Hezbollah? Thank you, Joel. I think I've dealt with that question just a moment ago. And next question you asked, Joel Pollack from Breitbart: is it a success that Hezbollah has been unable to link a ceasefire in Lebanon with an Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, as they tried to do several months ago? Look, let me make this clear on this question, Joel. Look, when it comes to Hezbollah, they falsely try to link the issues that we have against Hamas and the Palestinian issue in general. So they try to portray it as if they were supporting the Palestinian cause. Now, a simple look at the facts on the ground show that Lebanon, the country of Lebanon, has never given citizenship to Palestinians who fled this country as a result of the 1948 war for Israel's independence. They've never given that citizenship. Now, you would have thought that if Hezbollah were truly fighting or attacking us in some way in support of the Palestinian cause, then that would have been a cause closer to home that they would have focused on over the past decades. They have never focused on that fact. It's simply an effort to destroy this country. That's what Hezbollah's objective is, and there is no connection between the two issues except for the fact that they are both proxies of Iran. Iran that seeks to destroy this country, Iran that seeks to be a nuclear powered state, nuclear weapons powered state. We here in Israel will not allow that to happen. It is a threat to this country, but it's a threat to the entire region, if not the entire world. It is simply not an option to allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Next question here is from Hannah Julian from the Jewish Press. And your question is, the UN Security Council is meeting today on a resolution demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Can you comment on this? Thank you for that question. Let me answer that question directly. This is Israel's response. Our two main goals when it comes to Gaza are firstly the rescue of our hostages, 101 of them, men, women and children, 2 children, the Bibas children, 13 women who have been held for 411 days in the Hamas terror dungeons. That is a humanitarian outrage every single moment of the day. Now, the Prime Minister has made clear that this war can end right now if Hamas surrender, lay down their arms and bring back our hostages and let them go. The war will end. So if the UN would like to make a positive contribution to this conflict, which would be the first time they've ever, I think, made a positive contribution to our battle against militant Islam and militant terrorist organizations, Iranian proxies, then that's what they should call for the release of our hostages and Hamas to surrender. Then there would be peace instantly. Because the fact is that after this war, Hamas cannot be a leading factor in Gaza. So We're in contact with all of our partners in the region, particularly the US, but also other people, other countries in the region, to ensure that we make sure that the day after this war will be a positive starting point for people on both sides of the Gaza-Israel border. They are not going anywhere, and we are certainly not going anywhere. Now, at this point, the IDF is on the ground in Netzarim, in the Netzarim corridor, and our soldiers are fighting terrorists in the south, in Rafah, but also in the north, in Jabalia and Beit Lahia. But the best contribution the United Nations could possibly make, again, we don't hold our hopes up too high, because unfortunately the United Nations is dominated by sheer numbers for non-democratic countries, from dictatorships. The democratic countries are in the minority. So the UN, although it has this halo in the entire world and in the international media, they are not, unfortunately, on this issue, a force for good. They simply perpetuate this conflict. So our message to the United Nations is: pressure Hamas and Iran, release our hostages, Hamas should surrender, and that is the end of the conflict in Hamas. It will allow a better future for ordinary Gazans, and certainly a better future for the people of Israel, this country. Next question here is from Julia Frankel at Associated Press, AP. Is Israel looking to outsource aid distribution to a private contractor in Gaza, and is Israel considering military rule over the territory? Thank you for that question, Julia. Israel is looking at many creative solutions to ensure a better future for Gaza. Certainly, UNRWA has provided a failed past, and we are ensuring that that does not continue into a failed future. UNRWA simply perpetuated this conflict by this insistence that even if you're a grandchild of a refugee, you maintain your refugee status. In no other place in the world is that the case. And also to ensure that UNRWA, which was an organization which was infiltrated by Hamas, does not run the schools in Gaza. Just put it this way: every single terrorist that carried out the October 7th outrages was a graduate from an UNRWA school. That was the education which they received from an UNRWA school, of Jew hatred, of glorification of jihad. We are not prepared to accept that future. So Israel is looking for creative solutions to provide a better future for all Gazans. Okay, next question here I can see is from Fred Ager. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem has announced plans to attack Tel Aviv in response to Israeli strike on a Beirut building, claiming Israel must pay a heavy price for the assassination. Does Israeli Prime Minister's office have any response to Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem? Thank you for that question, Fred. Look, when it comes to Hezbollah, and I won't respond directly to this gentleman, this man, this terrorist who you quoted here, but let me speak about Hezbollah, the terrorist organization. Because we know that they receive both Iranian guidance and support. We know that their incessant firing of rockets and UAVs at our population centers here in Israel have had a heavy cost to our own innocent civilians here in Israel. But the state of Israel will continue to operate with force against Hezbollah, against this terrorist threat from Lebanon. And I say that is in common with any country intent on its survival. We are committed to the sovereignty of our country, and we are committed to the security of our citizens. Now, this ongoing effort we are taking forward to degrade and damage Hezbollah, the terrorist infrastructure in Lebanon, we know already, as no doubt your Naim Qassem knows, that Hezbollah's command structure has been eliminated, from the leader of the organization to the commanders of the operational arrays. So far, thousands of terror targets in Lebanon have been hit, including the strategic weapons located in the heart of civilian population areas in Lebanon. So we are ready to continue this fight against Hezbollah, but Hezbollah embedding themselves in the population centers and also firing at our civilians is simply not a future that post October the 7th Israel is prepared to accept. No more. We don't want UN Resolution 1701 should be adhered to the letter. That means enforcement, as our Prime Minister has said, enforcement, enforcement, enforcement. That means no Hezbollah between our northern border and the Litani River. That means that the Lebanese army should be in control there. And of course it means, in common with every other country, Israel reserves the right to defend itself from attack from Lebanon. We will always reserve that right. That's our duty, that's our obligation under international law, and we want to get our people home, back into their homes in sovereign Israeli territory. Next question here is also from AFP, Razieh Akok. Would you be able to say if there's an ongoing operation in Jenin where there are reports of one person killed today, and if possible, could you provide further details? Thank you very much for that question, Razieh. In the first instance, for operational issues like that, you should contact the IDF. But let me tell you, in Judea and Samaria, we are carrying operations. I'm not talking about this operation you may be referring to, but we are carrying out operations all the time to thwart terrorist activity in Judea and Samaria. They're happening every single day because after October the 7th, we are very clear here in Israel that there will be no safe haven for terrorists. The IDF and our security forces are operating in the entire region. We're focused on northern Gaza and Samaria, but other places as well where murderous attacks have been launched and planned. We will continue to fight to eliminate terrorism wherever it emerges, while at the same time ensuring that ordinary Palestinians who are not involved in terrorism are not harmed wherever it is possible. Hamas want to maximize their own civilian casualties. Israel is trying to minimize, to get them out of harm's way, to go for the terrorists without any civilian casualties. That has been our the start of this war. We take that extremely serious in adherence with international law. That's what we've been doing since the start of this war, 411 days. Hamas want to maximize civilian casualties. They hate Gazans. They hate Palestinians. They are jihadis. They're prepared to fight till the last Palestinian. But Israel is moving them out of harm's way and attacking the terrorists, and we are winning. Okay, my friends, that seems to be the last question here today. So in the meantime, we're available for interview, and we'll catch you at the next briefing. In the meantime, do please stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.